Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
Well, that was candidate Donald Trump 2 years ago on the campaign trail. Now, Friday's sweeping indictment by Robert Mueller's team is the first direct and public implication that Russians hacked or influenced the election. One of those targeted by those spies is former Clinton advisor Philippe Reines. He writes on Twitter, within minutes of Russia's spear-phishing email hit John Podesta's inbox, 3 other people were targeted. Here is mine. Philippe Reines joins me now, as does Jen Kerns. She's a former spokesperson for the California Republican Party. You're in the company of Robbie Mook, Jake Sullivan as well, Philippe. Yesterday, you heard from Rod Rosenstein as he unveiled this indictment. He said they made a deliberate effort here not to mention the victims in the indictment. Give us your reaction to what you saw yesterday, what you had to live through.
Well, first of all, it was, like you said, I'm in pretty good company in terms of being with John, Robbie, and Jake. You know, it's interesting to see the results of the DOJ and the Mueller investigation in terms of those of us who experienced it. It was very unnerving at the time to know that a foreign adversary was targeting us. Not because we have anything to hide, and since you can go online and read my email and they're hopefully entertaining, but they're certainly not problematic. But still, to know that someone is trying to screw with us and to know that Russia was trying to interfere in our election and, frankly, successfully did so was not acceptable. And the problem is that it has become acceptable as Donald Trump does absolutely nothing about it.
Jen Kerns, you've made your way through this 29-page indictment as well. As Philippe said, you learned there what the Russians did. And yet you still have the president calling this a witch hunt. You heard from Rod Rosenstein, the deputy attorney general, him saying yesterday that he briefed the president before the president embarked on that trip to Europe, to the UK, and on Monday to Finland as well. Why is he still calling this a witch hunt? How can you abide by that in light of what we know now?
Well, you know, I feel for people like Philippe, someone who's had my own emails gone through.
You have, okay.
I commend him for not having anything super salacious coming out of there. But let's remember who the real villain here is. This wasn't the Trump campaign that went through these emails.
So far as we know.
But phishing, so far as we know, it doesn't look like it is. I think we would have known by now. We're 60 weeks into this investigation, and so far we don't have much of a witch in this hunt as it relates to.
Well, you could say we have 12 of them.
Campaign.
There's a dozen witches we learned about yesterday with full first and last names, these Russians who were indicted.
Yep. And there's no connection that we know of right now. It doesn't appear to be that those were 12 people connected in any way. In fact, Rod Rosenstein himself said that none of these 12 intel officers from Russia were in communication with any American.
Look at this list here, though. 32 indicted, 5 guilty pleas, and 2 jailed so far when you look at what Special Counsel Robert Mueller's been able to accomplish thus far.
But look, here's the thing. We've called this in the media the Trump-Russia collusion investigation. It's been 60 weeks. We don't have any evidence tying Donald Trump to this. Now, certainly we have Paul Manafort tied to this. Maybe we ought to call this the Manafort-Russia collusion investigation.
Michael Flynn?
We've got, Manafort here was indicted for things he did far before, several years before his involvement in the presidential campaign. By the way, his tenure on the presidential campaign was about the length of the time of an internship here at 30 Rock. It was the summer of 2016 for whipping votes at the RNC convention. The list
Prime
goes on and on.
3 months in total. I mean, that's not an insignificant amount of time, and he was the campaign chairman.
Yeah, not insignificant, but you go on down the list. You've got Michael Cohen indicted for something unrelated to Russia. It's the Stormy Daniels potential non-disclosure agreement. You've got other folks here. Facebook, you could call this the Facebook Russian collusion investigation, because Facebook appears to be the only entity in this that actually changed hands between Facebook and the Russian ad farms. So this is interesting, I think, as we look forward here to how this investigation really will conclude, and it remains to be seen how much longer this will go on. I think we need to keep in mind not one member of the Trump administration is tied to this for any amount of Russian collusion. And again, Rod Rosenstein said yesterday.
Flynn.
Well, Michael Flynn, though, was in trouble and is in trouble for lying to investigators in a matter that proves he wasn't colluding
about
with
a
Russia.
meeting with the then Russian ambassador to the U.S.
Correct. But look, again, you look at this in terms of the Trump administration itself. President Trump didn't tell him to lie to investigators. President Trump, in fact, is on the record many times, including reported in the New York Times, that he's told everyone in his administration, you better cooperate with investigators. So I think it's unfair here to say that this is somehow tied to Trump. Again, if you want to look at who was president during this time, it was Barack Obama that was president during the time. This is not like a Richard Nixon Watergate event. President Barack Obama was president during the fall campaign season when this occurred. It's clear now. It's also been reported that his FBI counterintelligence unit was aware that Russia was trying to impact the elections. They knew that going back to 2014. They also knew of an alias that Russia often used on Facebook and other places to disseminate disinformation under the name of Alice Donovan. The FBI actively knew this, and they knew that they likely were behind the Guccifer 2.0 hacks at the DNC, yet they did nothing. It's amazing.
Philippe, I want you to get in here, if you would. I know you've been critical of the Obama administration's approach as well, but just react to some of this here. What strikes me here from what Jen's saying is that we don't know how long this will go on. Conceivably here, Bob Mueller could be building up to something that would be involving President Trump.
Well, I would say a few things. First of all, hats off to Jen, because the effort that the right, and particularly the people even the right of Jen, who I think is a reasonable Republican, to say that there's nothing here with a straight face.
I'll pay him later.
To say it with a straight face is remarkable. Donald Trump could hold an Oval Office address, put on a witch's pointy hat, stand on a broom and say, I confess. And you'd still have the far right saying, this is a witch hunt, there's nothing here. Jen will take any facts out there and turn them into something exculpatory. 191 indictments against 5 people is 5 guilty pleas against 35 people. It tells you everything. And in terms of the length of time, this talking point cracks me up. 60 months is the blink of an eye. I understand that we've now gotten to a point where society has attention deficit disorder, and but if you look at the Bill Clinton, it was 6 years. The Benghazi hearing was twice as long as what's going on. The hypocrisy is off the charts, and I think there are 2 things being missed. One is, look, I don't think this was handled as well as it should have been in 2016. I think it took a lot of people by surprise. But we're supposed to learn from mistakes, not just point them out and blame. It is now Donald Trump's responsibility to keep America safe, not just from missiles and rockets and overt kinetic actions against the United States, but people who are trifling and interfering and absolutely trying to destroy our democracy. He has done nothing about it. Look at Monday's meeting with Putin. If he shows up and even mentions the election interference, everyone's going to say, oh, he did his bit. He should stand there with Vladimir Putin and say, look, I told the Russian president, we know you did it. You can deny it all you want. We have the facts. And we know you're still doing it. If you continue to do it, we are going to do X, Y, and Z. We are going to just absolutely pull out all the stops to stop it. You don't hear that.
Well, you're not going to hear anything on Monday because this is going to be a one-on-one meeting with nobody present except for interpreters. And Jen, my last question to you just centers on the fact of we now know that this happened, and there is a universal outrage that I think that should come from this. That being you had a foreign power interfering in our elections. Why are you and others not exercised in a commensurate manner about that? The focus here is on the length of the investigation, or the fact that the Trump administration isn't directly involved yet in what we've seen from Bob Mueller and his team to the degree that maybe he will be. Who knows? But there is a universal outrage that should be pouring out of this, that this happened. Why isn't that there? Why isn't that the focus among you and other Republicans?
I think it is there. I am very outraged. I was an assistant secretary of state in the state of California, most populous number of voters in the United States of America at the time when the Diebold machines came out and we started tallying votes electronically. So this is of concern to me. But I take Rod Rosenstein at his word when he says the vote totals were not affected in this, and the outcome of the United States election was also not affected in this. And again, I go back to, I know you guys hate this Me Too-ism in terms of the what the Democrats did versus Republican is, but the fact of the matter is the Obama administration was in charge when this happened. And I think as president of the United States and someone who was in control of the FBI and the counterintelligence unit, the FBI should have been more alarmed at the fact this was happening. They likely knew that it was Russia that was doing this, and the Obama administration, I do not think, took appropriate steps at the time it was happening, and they knew this was going to happen as far back as 2013, possibly even 2014, and they did nothing to prepare for it.
And Rob
David, can I
Rosenstein,
jump in with one last thought?
Go ahead there, Philippe. Yeah.
You know, I have a feeling that 5 months from now, after the Democrats take over the House, the three of us are going to be talking, and Jen is going to be echoing Donald Trump saying that the Russians were behind flipping the House.
And they very well
it's
could
going to be the absolute hypocrisy, and it won't matter because
Democrats aren't going to flip the House, but keep dreaming, keep dreaming.
But you raised a good point that we learned yesterday of the hacking of the DCCC, of course, and not all of those emails were released. So a very real point you're making there as well. Philippe, thank you very much. As always,
thank you for having us.
Jen Kerns, thanks to you as well. And oh, baby.